Weyauwega Fremont Middle School IMC.
Here.
The meeting was properly notified. Everyone listening back right now. Thank you. 5, election of officers. President. Are there any nominations to recognize an individual as school board president? I nominate Ehrenberg. Jim Stewart.
I'll second that.
Debbie. Are there any other nominations for school board president? Are there any other nominations for school board president? With no other nominations, I look for a motion to close nominations for school board president.
I make the motion.
Second.
Dan. All in favor to close nominations?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. One. Roll call.
That's all. Debbie Burnell. Yes. Kurt Hesper.
Yes.
Tim Bain.
Yes.
Jim Stipp.
Yes.
Dan Cole.
Yeah.
Doug Ehrenberg.
Yes.
Sandy Smith. Yes.
Motion carried. Are there any nominations to recognize an individual as school board vice president?
Motion to nominate.
I'll second it. Motion by Sandy, second by Jim. Are there any other nominations for school board vice president? Are there any other nominations for school board vice president? With no other nominations, I look for a motion to close nominations for school board vice president. I so move.
Second.
Second by Deb. All in favor to close the nominations for vice president? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Sandy Smith. Yes. Doug Ehrenberg.
Yes.
Dan Cole.
Yes.
Jim Stipp.
Yes.
Kurt Hesper.
Yes.
Tim Bain.
Yes.
Debbie Burnell. Yes.
Carried. Are there nominations to recognize an individual as school board treasurer?
I make a motion to nominate Jim Stibbs as the school board treasurer.
I'll second that. Are there any other nominations for school board treasurer? Are there any other nominations for school board treasurer? With no other nominations, I look for a motion to close nominations for school board treasurer.
I make the motion.
Andy? Second by Kurt. All in favor to close the nominations for school board treasurer?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Dan Cole.
Yes.
Doug Ehrenberg.
Yes.
Tim Bain.
Yes.
Sandy Smith. Jim Stipp.
Yes.
Kurt Hesper.
Yes.
Debbie Burnell. Yes.
School board treasurer. Are there nominations to recognize an individual as school board clerk?
Make a motion to nominate Debbie Burnell.
I'll second.
Second by Steve. Are there any other nominations for school board clerk? Are there any other nominations for school board clerk? No other nominations. I look for a motion to close nominations for school board clerk.
Make that motion.
Second that. Kurt, all in favor to close nominations for school board clerk?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Doug Ehrenberg.
Yes.
Sandy Smith. Yes. Jim Stipp.
Yes.
Tim Bain.
Yes.
Dan Cole.
Yes.
Debbie Burnell. Yes. Kurt Hesper.
Yes.
to recognize Mr. Neil Rucks was with us this evening, and his time of service for the board over the past 6 years. Neil has been a committed board member, not only for the city of Weyauwega, but our community as a whole. WASP, our School Board Association, recognizes members of boards and their service for the flag and use for the members of the flag on behalf of WASP. So thank you, Neil, for your time and commitment to being part of our board over the past 2 terms, and we appreciate your time. Thank you. The other part I just wanted to mention in my administrative report is the article I wrote about decision-making processes and how we're faced last month at this time. During our visitor section, we had a nice dialogue with community members on the topic next to my elementary was staffing for next year versus current staffing and options that were presented. And pondering on that over the past few weeks, I just wanted to bring in mind that when we make decisions, we're always focused on making the right decision. Is there a right decision? Somewhere out there, there's always a right decision. So what happens is when we make decisions, there's often 2 possible right answers there to solution. And the solutions that we were looking at in Fremont are just that. On one hand you have a right decision, the other hand you have a right decision. And then we make decisions based on the good of the whole, the overall, the group, the majority, as we move forward. So that's my mindset and my 2 cents on the process. And when we make any kind of decision as a district, we're making them the better of the whole. And as we move forward, we'll empower each other to become educated and learn what our decisions are in front. Tonight, some gentlemen are going to be talking about some HVAC opportunities within our district, and it will be our goal to make the right decision for our district with the fact that this is that. Thank you.
This is kind of quite the segue because I didn't know Mr. Bleck was going to make those remarks. And I'll leave my board report stand as presented. But what I wanted to do is just kind of highlight the overall theme of it. I mean, we're talking about literacy night, where the community came together. Just out here in the cafeteria, we had just a wonderful evening with with Tom Pease, and then the Jump Rope for Heart, where our kids in our schools were working to help raise money for the American Heart Association. So that's going back out into the community. And then I'm sure many of you have heard about the father-daughter dance in Fremont. And again, it was just a spectacular evening, and it really, I think, strengthens the bonds of our school and our community. And then the other thing was Grandparents' Day, 4K Grandparents' Day over in Fremont this past week. And just really thinking about it, just highlighting the theme of how important our schools are to our community and how important our communities are to our schools.
The first item I wanted to point out in my board report was the Autism Effectiveness Team. Last week, our Autism Effectiveness Team, and they presented here to this board before, was recognized at the Cesa level. They're in what's called cohort 1, and there's 3 cohort groups going. Of all the 42 schools that are participating, our team was singled out with another Appleton area school to present and showcase. And a lot of other districts took items away from that. A lot of pictures were taken of our items, and permission to borrow. And tomorrow, the Adams Friendship District is going to showcase what this program is doing. So I just wanted to sing their praises again. I know they presented to the board before. They're really doing a nice job. The other items I have on my board report are updates coming in, the data we're getting back from the addition of the Title I program and the Math 180 program, which are both new this year, and the ELL Access test results are in. So as that information keeps coming forward, I will present that to the board. But this is kind of a teaser in anticipation for the large-scale data retreat that's coming this summer with the staff, with all the new testing data that's available with the new state plan.
I just want to highlight the financial reports that are in the board book. We continue to do well in the medical and the dental plans. They're continuing to see surpluses. And we did get an influx of state aid in the food service, and that deficit is shrunk to just under $3,000 right now. Hopefully we'll get that turned around before the end of the school year.
Chairman, one further comment. I just wanted to make Mr. Schrader's not with us tonight. He went home ill. But I know if he was here, he would comment on the performances that took place over the weekend with our musical, the spring musical. I had the pleasure of attending it on Friday night, and I think Jeremy was there all night, and our administrative team was there on other nights as well. Just an outstanding performance
You know, we talk all the time about how sports can do so many things for kids. To me, that musical just showed what the arts can do. There were kids in there that, when you see them in school, they don't talk, they don't make eye contact, but they would get up there and sing a solo with just such confidence. It was amazing, and there were people in the audience with me, because I went to all three of them, and but there were people in the audience with me saying, that cannot be the same thing. And that was just the coolest thing to see. And they did an amazing job, all those kids. It was really awesome.
Recognition and special guests.
We have several recognitions this evening, and some esteemed special guests that we'd like to recognize this evening. First is Mr. Pat Fee is with us. Mr. Fee is a high school social studies instructor. He's been with us for how many years now? 13 years in the district. Committed classroom teacher, community serviceman. Last Thursday I was going home and came around the corner, and there's Pat Fee in the ditch over kind of where I live, raking out somebody's yard. And I said, what's going on here? Well, this lady needs some help here because the snowball tore her yard back on the corner there. And Pat was with his students doing community service to help out his community members. You know, that's just the tip of the iceberg when we talk about Mr. Fee and some of the recent accomplishments. More importantly, 2 weeks ago, Mr. Schrader and I had the honor to be invited to the Co-Fellowship Foundation program in Oshkosh, in which former Senator Herb Cole has been a great part of our state and giving back to not only students but our educators. This past year, Pat was nominated by Jeremy Schrader, our high school principal, as a co-fellowship candidate. Pat went through I'll say, a process of applying, and it's difficult because we deal with good teachers, good people that have done great things. But one of the things they often struggle with is putting down the great things on paper so that others can take a look at them and appreciate what they do. And Pat accepted the nomination and submitted the application to our district, where he was recognized and then forwarded on to Cesa 6, in which our 42-member schools of Cesa 6, they had a panel there that evaluated applicants from around our Cesa. And out of that, Pat's application made its way down to Madison for the state co-fellowship readings. I was fortunate enough to represent the Wisconsin School Association of District Administrators this year and be part of that evaluation process. Each application had to go through 3 different readings from 3 different evaluators. And then after each reading and scoring, the cumulative scores were added together, and then the top 100 members that had the highest score were recognized as co-fellowship recipients. I was not able to read Pat's application. Those are the bylaws, although I saw it there, and one other member of our school community, Mary Jo Booker, who also qualified to the state level for recognition. But Pat surfaced to the top, and a few weeks ago we got the call, Mr. Schrader did, that Pat's been recognized. And that is not the first from our school community to be recognized as a co-fellowship instructor. It's a list of long and distinguished staff members that have been committed to our district in the past, and current, and hopefully in the future as we go forward. Mr. Fee, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time. It's not just 8 hours of instruction in a classroom. It starts early, ends late, and fill in the blanks with caring and looking out for the betterment of students in our greatest school community. So thank you, Mr. Fee, for the full fellowship recipient in 2015. Number 2, Elizabeth Hilscotter. Unfortunately, her schedule is tight, just as tight as many of ours, and she's a student athlete in the arts as well, and she's at a softball game in Stevens Point. But recently at our Fine Arts Academics Club Recognition Pep Rally, which we held a few weeks ago, Elizabeth was recognized as the recipient of the 2015 Prevention Volunteer Service Award recipient. Now, this is not an award that just doesn't get handed out to anyone that would apply. We, again, are very fortunate with our service-oriented minded staff and students that we continually have students that are recognized at the team level. Elizabeth received a letter from President Barack Obama recognizing donation recipient as she continues to pass and chooses education as her forte. But congratulations to Elizabeth and her committed service to our school community. Thank you. The next several donations are recognized through monetary donations to our district for intended projects and programs. First is a donation from the Weyauwega Fremont School District softball program. Remember this past fall in late October, our home dugout in the straight line wind event where it came straight from the east took and toppled the dugout, and thus we had to work on a replacement to build a new structure out there, and fortunately we were able to build 2 new structures with some donations that come in from our various communities. So the softball program at the district donated $1,000 towards the renovation and addition of a new dugout, as well as the Weyauwega Fremont Athletic Booster Club with a donation of $2,459.85 to support the construction. Donation for the Weyauwega Fremont Softball Club of $2,000, and then several in-kind donations, whether it was supplies or materials that were supported in the project from CLC Sign, Pace, Folks Brothers, Spiegelberg, volunteer labor, and Tom Chase, who committed time and energy specifically to see this project come through. So Scott Krause Builders as well, he was the primary contractor that came up with the plans, the idea, and has really turned our complex in the softball area into a great place to be for our young adults, young students that will be in there, not just during our school season, but during our summer programs as well. So thank you to all that have donated towards that project. Very much appreciated, and should last many, many years. It's made of brick, so hopefully we'll be in good shape for a long time. So thank you. The next donation is a donation from Mary Ellen Rohde, Wurzbach, and William F. Wurzbach. And I was approached by our head track coach, Jared Wilson, several weeks ago about this donation to the district. Mary Ellen Rohde, her father, Len Rohde, is a longtime track coach in Weyauwega Fremont, and specifically the pole vaulting and other track events. And through him, they're very fortunate and they're able to donate back in memory of what he did here as a coach and contributed to our school community. And they'd like to donate $20,000 to the track and field program. And that money will be greatly appreciated and put to work. One of the targeted areas is a pole vault pit in which our students will be able to participate in and have the equipment necessary, first to ensure safety, and second to have proper instruction, and third to have an opportunity to compete at beyond our regional, sectionals, and potentially the state level. So you'll see the process move forward. I'm intending to bring that forward for a pole vault pit and various supplies, and to ensure that the event, the Rohde Relays, will continue on for many years going forward. So a significant thank you to the Wurzbach family in memory in the Rohde Relays in the time that Len spent with us as a coach. So thank you sincerely. The next donation was from William and Loretta Brace, amount of $460 to our Weyauwega Fremont golf program. Each of our sports is allotted X amount of dollars to support the function of their activities throughout the year. Mr. and Mrs. Brace made a nice donation to assist with some clothing purchases for our team this spring, and a sincere thank you to them as well. And then our final recognition is a donation to the Fremont Elementary Education Department from Ryan and Martha Bailey in the amount of $80 directly towards the Fremont PE program. Sincere thank you to Ryan and Martha Bailey for thinking of the PE program in Fremont Elementary. So very nice, and very thank you of the community and their giving hand to our school community. Thank you.
Cesa Ehrenberg report. In my minutes I get updates on this. 6F legislative liaison, Mr. Bleck.
Nothing has, I would call, necessarily changed in our state outlook and state funding. Our drug finance and planners to be within the state are still processing our state budget. There is movement, there is discussion about, I believe there was comments from Governor Walker that if surplus is found through potential revenues received in taxing that may not have been anticipated, that should be directed towards public education. So that will be a good thing, enlightening to help support public education within our state. Later on in our agenda, we have that draft resolution to address what the potential budget proposal means to us with the reduction over the next 2 years if it were to go in place today. And we'll discuss that at that time.
6G, student school board rep, Jordan Rucks. Jordan is also at the softball game tonight.
Right. And just to give an update on the process, the school representative to the board, that process went through our student council, and candidates submitted their names. Accordingly, student council carried out the process to identify potential candidates, and Jordan Rucks was voted in by her peers again to represent them at our meetings. Again, Jordan stopped in at the end of the day and said, "What, I got a softball game in Kelly today, and I won't be there." And I said, "Understood, you're busy. You're going in a lot of directions, and we'll see you that potentially she may come in a little bit later if she does get back." So if she walks in, I said, "Just come on in if you get back before the meeting is over." So she made it yet. So congratulations for Jordan and her reappointment to the student board job.
7, approval of previous meeting minutes. 7A, committee of the whole meeting, April 13th, 2015.
I'll make a motion to the committee of the whole meeting on April 13th. I'll second it.
And second. Discussion, questions on the minutes? All in favor to approve the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. 7B, regular Board of Education meeting, March 23rd, 2015. I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Questions, discussion on the regular meeting minutes? Hearing none. All in favor to approve the regular meeting, March 23rd, 2015? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 8, consideration and approval of vouchers. 8A, March monthly vendor payments.
I'll make a motion to approve on his questions that they were answered.
Questions on the vendor payments?
I just had a question on the interpreter. This may have been, is that something that we schedule regularly or just for parent-teacher conferences or upon request? Or?
I can answer that.
Okay.
There's 55 ESL students in the district right now. Some of their parents speak English and some do not. So if we have to have parents come in for conferences, but sometimes they're individual meetings like an IEP meeting or a special meeting that a teacher would call after school that's beyond parent-teacher conference window, then that person does that. He occasionally translates documents, ones that we don't have at the ready, like we have the registration packet already done, but other additional items that would come up, he provides that service.
Not a big deal. I was just wondering how it works. Or if it's
Yep.
regular,
As
once a
needed.
month,
It's
this
as needed.
person comes and families can come in.
Questions on the vendor payments?
We all done with it after you?
Yep, this is the final prepayment. Yep, we're sitting on it until we're well established within Ansay, and we've made out the final 3.
Roll call, please.
Hankel.
Yes.
Kirkowski.
Yes.
Tim Mason.
Yes.
Jim Smith.
Yes.
Debbie Bridle. Yes. Doug Ehrenberg.
Yes. Motion carried. 8B, March monthly cash receipts.
I'll make the motion to approve the March monthly cash receipts.
have Charlie Schneider and his team members from Cesa this evening who are forward to take our district through a specified assessment of our elementary, Weyauwega Elementary, and high school HVAC systems tonight. Charlie and his team will be presenting their findings and some other insight information for us to process through that'll help us make quality decisions going forward. So.
Good evening, everybody. And what will be shown on the screen behind you as we talk. Again, my name is Charlie Schneider. I'm the director of facilities management at Cesa 10. At Cesa 10, we do a lot of different facilities management work. This is one of the things that we do is help schools through the process of auditing their buildings and deciding what to do with your buildings as you move forward. Excuse me. You can forward, please. So, just real quickly, hit Cesa 10. We're obviously, you folks are all familiar with what Cesas are. We're a nonprofit, but we are the only Cesa in the state that also does facilities management work. We do environmental health and safety work, helping you manage your asbestos and those kinds of things. Energy management, Nate actually is our manager of our energy management area. We do owner's representative services, which is kind of probably what we would get into here, depending on exactly where you go. We do environmental project consulting and then performance contracting as well, using Act 32 to finance projects, which has become a big thing in school districts in the state here in the last couple of years. Before I move on any further, I want to introduce Nate Carell. He, as I said, is our manager of energy management, also one of our on-staff engineers. And to my right is Tony Menard. Tony and Nate and I came over on earlier in the month. Election day was at, I think, April 6th, and toured through your buildings and through the elementary and the high school here anyway, and came up with some recommendations to some things that we'll get into a little bit deeper here. This is our main philosophy about efficiency and investing in things at Cesa 10. The bottom tier is really where we want people to start. Low cost, no cost, optimizing that existing equipment. Clean what's dirty, fix what's broken. Honestly, for the most part, a lot of your equipment here is beyond that. We aren't able to do a lot of fixing what's broken because it's 60 years old almost, and parts aren't readily available. Clean what's dirty. For the most part, we didn't find a lot that was dirty. Things have been kept up here pretty well. Wes and his folks that came before him have done a good job of doing that, of keeping the wheels on, if you will. But the equipment is for the most part beyond its useful life. So now it's time to make that investment in that new energy efficient equipment. And then we have the renewable block on the top because a lot of times people want to go to renewables right away. Really what you want to do is reduce what you use first and then go to renewables, and that's why we talk about that. Some of the terminology that we're going to get into here, just real quickly, I'm not going to in any way try to make you experts at this, but try to help you to at least understand where we're coming from. Currently, in both your elementary and your high school buildings, you have non-condensing boilers. At best, they're going to be in the mid-80s for efficiency. A condensing boiler, which very quickly pulls more of the BTUs out of the exhaust gases by condensing them, is going to run into the mid-90s for efficiency. You do not have any of those currently, at least in either of these buildings. In the elementary building, you have what we call unit ventilators. Those are those boxes that sit underneath the windows on the exterior walls. Not a bad unit, very popular in the era that building was built. But again, these were original to the building, and parts are very difficult, if not impossible, to find. An air handling unit is more of a centralized unit, if you will. You have them located throughout the building in closets and mezzanines and a few up on the roof as well. More of a centralized unit supplying to more than one room. The unit ventilators supply typically to one room, more of a contained unit, if you will. We're going to talk about a chiller if in fact you want to at some point go to centralized cooling. Valves. You've got a lot of valves in this building that are non-operational. The good news maybe is that they are stuck in probably an open position. The bad news is that if Wes needs to isolate something, he can't. So if you have a failure, he's not going to be able to close that valve off, and you're going to lose a whole lot of water throughout your classrooms and so forth. So not a good situation to be in. Plus, they're probably not, when the system calls for heat, the valve opens. When it's been satisfied, the valve should close. In a lot of cases, I don't believe that's going on. They're either stuck open or they're stuck closed. Ductwork, I know that that's been a big thing here in your building, in the high school side of the building, this fiberboard ductwork that you have. And you'll see as we go through the presentation, there's a lot of, a major part of the cost is due to that ductwork. That's a big deal. But really, if you ever want to entertain air conditioning in that building, and if you ever want to entertain really being efficient, that ductwork has to go. One of the things that we found this afternoon when we were looking through the plans that I thought was somewhat humorous, when the person came back after originally installing the system back in 1988, the plans are drawn in April of '88. The person came back in December of '88 to do what's called the balancing report, to make sure that these diffusers were putting out the amount of air that they were designed to put out. He said at that point that much of the ductwork had split open and he had to repair it. That was like 4 to 5 months after it had been installed. We're now 25 years later, and what's going on here in a lot of cases is that ductwork is split open, and you're using the area above the ceiling in that area of the building as the return plenum. But that's also where the ductwork is. So if the ductwork split, and the air is going to go out wherever it can as quickly as it can, and then it's going to go back to the return. So it's short cycling. It's not getting to where it needs to get. And I'll show you some photos of that. Although I'm disappointed with my photography work, I'll show you some photos that, at least to some degree, shows that, and sometime maybe Wes could take you on tour and show you. Retro commissioning is something that we would do to come into the building and try to get things that are here running as good as we can without spending a lot of money. It's not free, it's not cheap, but it's not replacing things. It's trying to get those things working better, and we'll talk more about that. Then we have the pneumatic controls versus the direct digital control. Pneumatic, those are run with air. So you got an air compressor in the elementary school that we'll talk more about as well, that sends out an air pressure that tells that valve to either open or close. Well, because it's air pressure, it's hard to maintain the exact pressure, so that valve's going to wander a little bit. Direct digital, that's electronic. It's a voltage signal, and much more precise in the way that it's able to control. Much less maintenance needed, a much better product, and the newer product, if you will. A little bit more on retro commissioning, and I'll let you folks read this later. But it's about getting those things in the building to work as they were originally designed. So it's getting those valves to work. It's getting those unit ventilators to make sure that outside air damper travels the way that it should. It's getting those kinds of things to work, which sometimes is not all that easy in a building where the equipment is this age. So here's a photograph of, this is the elementary school. This is basically how the building is controlled currently. We have a time clock, and we can see those little tabs on the outside of the time clock when the building comes on and when the building goes off. So because that time clock is the way that it is, that building on the 26th of December is operating, I would bet, like it thinks there's students there. It's a Tuesday afternoon, it says beyond. If we go to a digital control system in the future, we would be able to schedule that building, so there would be a substantial amount of energy savings there, plus the air that we're talking about as well. So the next slide, we're showing what some of these direct digital control systems might look like. We're showing the scheduling in that lower left-hand corner. We can schedule those buildings, those rooms, those spaces down to a very tight time frame. That's what Nate and his guys do. In that energy management program, we're saving people that have these systems 20%. Most of it is by their energy use. Most of it is by controlling that schedule, making sure things run when they should run and don't run when they don't need to run. This is another screen out of that digital control system. It just gives you a sense of the kinds of things that Wes would be able to see from his computer at work, from his phone, from his computer at home. from his computer, wherever it is he vacations, he can see this anywhere in the world as long as you can connect to the internet. Not saying, Wes, that you need to do that, but you would be able to do that. That's what Nate and his guys do on a regular basis. We're controlling these things, going in and looking. Right now, we can see, is that boiler running down in the elementary school? If so, why? And we could shut it off if we needed to. This one doesn't show very well on the screen because it is so dark, but it shows an air handling unit. We're able to see what's operating, what isn't operating, what valves are open, what valves are closed, whether the fan's running. We're able to see all of that from here. Of course, one of the things in doing that, we need to make sure that it actually, just because the signal says it's happening, doesn't necessarily mean that it is. So we need to go back every now and then and retro-commission that to make sure that it's working correctly. But that is one of the things that you would be able to do with a newer system. So on to some photographs. On the left-hand side, this is some ductwork, I believe, down near the auditorium, if I remember correctly, Wes?
I think so, yes.
Again, I apologize for the photography, but if you look on that picture on the left, over on the left side of that picture, there's a piece of duct tape hanging down there. That is fluttering in the wind, and obviously a still photograph doesn't show that. But that duct is holding together as best it can, thanks to people like Wes being here. But you see some wood there. They tried to reinforce it with some wood, and it's literally falling apart. In the middle photograph, a Band-Aid, if you will. You have an air compressor on the left-hand side that runs that pneumatic system, and there's been some issues with that I won't get into. But the air compressor on the right-hand side was brought in to replace the one on the left that had failed. If the air compressor on the right fails, it will contaminate that whole system, and you will have big issues real quick. That compressor on the right is not made to do that, and it's, like I said, a Band-Aid at this point, but it could cause some real issues real fast. On the right-hand side, you can see this is going down the stairs into the boiler room. On the left-hand side is that pneumatic control board that we showed some close-up photos of. But what I really wanted to show in this photo is underneath, it's kind of hard to see, but in the white, there's a white pipe with a bunch of red goo on it. That red goo is the leakage from the valve up above that you can't see in the photograph. That valve has been leaking for years, and that the minerals out of the water, the chemicals out of the water, leaking down onto that system. So now on to Weyauwega Elementary specifically. This is a picture of the boiler system. The one on the left is obviously a newer boiler than the one on the right. But honestly, both boilers are well beyond their useful life. Will they still work? Yes. Might they work for the next 5 years, 10 years? They might. Might they fail tomorrow? They might. Especially the one on the left has maybe a little bit of life left in it. The one on the right is certainly well beyond its intended life. So kind of getting into the meat of things now on the next slide. The elementary school. This is kind of your first option as we see it. This is bare bones. This is getting these things to work the way that they're supposed to work. So we're going to replace many of those valves that I talked about. We're going to repair the unit ventilators, only repair them. And we're going to retro-commission the entire building. The life expectancy of that I predict to be less than 3 years. So you're going to spend $155,000, and 3 years from now we're going to be in the exact same place we are right now. So to me, that doesn't seem like a very good investment. Could you do it? Yes. Will it get you through so that next winter your students are warm and safe? Yes, absolutely. But it's going to give you little to no energy savings and a very short life expectancy. Now moving on to the second, back to that boiler, the same shot of that boiler room, and then we can move on to the second image. Oh, there we go. Here we're replacing the boilers with condensing boilers. We're going to replace those unit ventilators. Remember, those unit ventilators are original to the building. The unit ventilators would have the ability to provide AC. We would not put AC to them at this point. At some point in the future, you could do that. We would replace all the pneumatic controls with the direct digital. Talking about a little bit more than $500,000. To do that, the life expectancy of that is more than 20 years, and it would have some energy savings. We did not quantify those energy savings, and the reason that we did not quantify those energy savings is we need to do some more digging because we're a little bit concerned about how much ventilating you're doing right now. If we start ventilating more, that's actually going to cost you in energy, so we need to excuse me, do some calculating there. The next photo is, these are the condensing boilers. Those two boilers will produce more than the two boilers on that you have existing, and a much smaller footprint. That just happens to be a specific brand, but one of the boilers that we've seen and have used. Condensing boilers, a different control scheme. We want the water to be colder. Things need to be redesigned, but we would do that in redesigning those unit ventilators. On to the next option. We would have operational AC, again doing the boilers, and again doing the math. $620,000. Again, life expectancy more than 20 years, and the energy savings would be median. I'm sorry? The operational AC, so you're going to have cooling there at that point. And in this case, we're staying with unit ventilators. One of the things that we're concerned about in that elementary wing is that building was not designed to have ductwork above it between this ceiling and the roof. We're concerned that there's enough space there. If possible, we'd like to put in a variable air volume system like this is, but we're very skeptical that could be done without doing a lot of literally shoehorning things in. And when we do that, that's almost never good. Okay? But we would get it in here and have the operational AC with the unit ventilator. Now moving on to the last for the elementary school, we would go with what's called displacement unit ventilators. So the photograph, if you go forward one picture, please. The photograph on the left is one of the classrooms with the unit ventilators as they exist now. And the photograph on the lower right is the gymnasium as it exists. The photograph on the upper right is a photograph of what's called displacement unit ventilators. So they look very similar, but we're able to bring that air in, and we're able to bring that cooling in, and they're much more efficient than a typical unit ventilator. We're able to bring it in because we're bringing it in a higher pressure in a smaller duct. Instead of ductwork that's 10 by 20, we're bringing in a 5-inch round, 2 or 3 5-inch rounds. So we're able to get it above that ceiling space if we need to. So that's the advantage to that. Go back up. Thank you. So again, we're going to replace the boilers with condensing. We're going to replace the unit ventilators with displacement type, and we're going to go to operational AC. And then, of course, replacing the direct digital control. Now, having said all of that, if we could put a variable air volume system above, so when the engineers come in to make the design, I would prefer that kind of a system. And I believe that we could do it for the same kind of money. But we'd want to look at that when the engineers come in. Right now I'm skeptical, but when we get the engineers, the design engineers in, we'd want to have them take a look at that. I think that's a better, because then your building would be they would all operate basically the same.
Can I just ask you this question here, is that cost or after the engineers do the work?
That price includes any fees it's a budgetary number only, right, at this point. But it would include any fees to Cesa as well as any fees to the design engineer. And the parts and everything. So now on to the high school. And we did kind of the same process here as well. That first photograph is of the boilers, which again, there are a couple that are non-operational that we need to get repaired or replacement. And so back to the bottom, if you will, the one that has the life expectancy of only 3 years. We're going to repair and replace those valves. We're going to repair, not replace, repair that existing ductwork as best we can. That will be a very big job because it is not in good shape. And then we would also retro commission. $270,000, again, energy savings, there would be some, but they would not be substantial. Again, we'd be in the same place 3 years from now. This is a picture, actually I think turned from the one that I saw earlier. Actually, if you go back to the high school H1 slide, down one, there we go. In the right-hand side there, that duct is almost totally collapsed. Where that board is right there, that should be up, and it's almost totally collapsed. So that's a 2 foot by 2 foot opening in that ductwork that's just spewing air out of it at this point. And I suspect if we were to go up and look, we would find more of those. Then on to the next photograph. This is where somebody used duct tape, D-U-C-K, to try to fix the ductwork, D-U-C-T. Duct tape is not to be used on ductwork. Duct tape is a foil back tape, but it's different. Duct tape dries up and falls off. And as you can see, that's what happened. They tried their best, I suspect 5 or 6 years ago, to try to get it to seal up, but it didn't get the job done, or at least not long term. So now on to the second option at the high school. Again, we're going to replace that existing ductwork. Notice the big difference from H1 to H2. We're talking about almost $2 million. A big part of that is that ductwork. I think, how many guys fought? Yeah, about $700,000 for that ductwork. That's a big piece. And it would really, I mean, imagine, well, a couple of other things that Wes and I talked about before the meeting started. Included in that is also replacing all of the suspended ceiling in that area as well. Because to get at that ductwork, we're going to have to pull that ceiling down, put the ductwork in. Well, putting that ceiling back up is like putting a puzzle back up in the air. And we could bid it both ways to try to redo it, but I will be willing to bet you that the bids will come back, the labor will be so astronomical that it's just better off to just put up new suspended ceiling. So that's a big piece between those two together. That's a big piece of that cost. So we're going to replace that ductwork. We're going to replace the boilers again with condensing boilers. We're going to put in the DDC controls, and we're going to replace that suspended ceiling because, again, we're going to disrupt that area. Again, now we're going to have that greater than 20-year life, and our energy savings would be fairly substantial here because we're going to seal up that ductwork, we're going to put in those more efficient boilers, and we're going to put in that DDC system. The photograph for the auditorium. Looking at the plans this afternoon, I think we discovered a few things here in the auditorium. One is, of course, engineers will always disagree with other engineers, but the way this system was designed, we're not surprised that you have comfort issues in that space. And I think it could be easily repaired, but it just isn't designed to do the job correctly, and it could be fixed. Again, looking at the ceiling here, imagine taking that ceiling down to fix that ductwork and then putting the old ceiling back up again. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So on to the third option here. Again, we're going to replace that ductwork. We're going to replace the pneumatic controls with direct digital. We're going to replace air handling units, but only as needed in order to have air conditioning. Not operational air conditioning, in order to have the ability to get air conditioning. The reason for that is that air handling unit that serves the auditorium, it's shoehorned in that space. That's very tight. I don't think we're going to be able to get another coil into that unit. I think we're going to have to replace that unit with a new unit. Might have to go up on the roof in order to get a coil leader to be able to have operational AC. So we would replace air handling units in order to get those coils in so that we can, in the future, have AC. And then, of course, replace that ceiling. You're talking about $2.25 million to do that. The last option is do everything we're going to do in 3, but put that chiller in so that now we have a centrally cooled building. And that's the big difference there.
Is a cool building in there?
Yeah.
Just thought you might have to do it there.
So if you then go to the last page. It says C handout, which is what you have in your hand. This is kind of a synopsis of all of them. E1, H1. Would we help you do them if that's what you chose, if that's the road you chose to go down? Yes, we would. Do we recommend that road? No, we do not. Because again, you're going to be back in the same place 3 years. Anything beyond that, whatever you folks decide to do, we think would be a good decision to do, depending on how, whether you want operational AC, whether you want it to only be ready to have AC, all of those kinds of things. Those are the options as we've laid them out in front of you. There are other things that could be done as well, but those are the things that we think would be most cost effective without going too wild. I mean, we can put in a geothermal system and all of those kinds of things, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense here at this point in time. Lastly, the last thing that I wanted to mention is at the elementary school, talked about the air compressor. The other thing that's an acute thing that you really need to think about and you really need to do something pretty quickly is one of the unit ventilators is not currently working, and that needs to be fixed before fall. So I know Wes has been talking about it. I don't know if it's been before the board or not, where that's at. But depending on what you do here, that's something that you need to keep in the back of your mind. Those two things really need to be fixed over the summer. Let's say, for instance, you decide to take 3 months to decide what to do with this. You can't wait with those two things. We would fix those two things if we did those would both be fixed and out of there if we moved ahead with these.
So that's included.
Yes, yes. One issue that we have though is we'd figure out a way, but to get it through. I don't think that going out and getting and wanting to do construction this summer here is necessarily a good thing. The reason I say that is because contractors are busy. They have their work lined up. People who do work in schools have their work lined up to work this summer. If we go out and do bids right now, they're going to be pulling different crews in. They're going to be bringing people online. I don't think we're going to get good bids. I would suggest that we take the time, design it now. Maybe we go out to bids and see what we get with the realization that maybe we don't do it. Or maybe we wait and design it so that we can be doing things later in the year. Or early on. Those two things we would have to work with the district to make sure that they're done in a way that at least gets you through that winter. I have a couple of ideas of things that we can do there.
And doing them first when you set the apple cart and then do the process. Are you going to
We wouldn't do them in a way that is we would do them in a temporary way, let's say. We would make sure that space gets heat, but by getting a different heat source in there maybe, or by robbing from somewhere else, and then we can heat that place differently, or something like that.
So we wouldn't be putting something in and not take something out.
No, we would not want to do that.
So you're talking about construction during the school year then?
You could, and we've done that in the past. We have some projects that we've done that. Or I'm talking about doing construction starting this time next year. Either way, we can do either. But even if we get the design going, if you said right now, take number 4 on both of these and move, let's go. I'm not ready to go to bids for a month and a half at least, and then we're talking about the end of the school year. A lot of these projects, though, are things that we could do. Down in Columbus, we replaced the HVAC system in the Columbus Elementary School in October, November, December. So it can be done. It's a little bit of a hassle, but it can be done. And it's totally up to you.
The hot water you're talking about, boiler.
Yes.
Do anything different from boiler?
Well, again, we can do geothermal, but there's a very large capital cost to do that. But other than that, now we're gonna go hot water and we're gonna go condensing. We're not gonna go, you know, the non-condensing or steam, which some of the boiler, at least one of the boilers in the elementary school was originally a steam boiler converted to hot water. But typically boilers is the most efficient way to do it in a building of this size.
I mean, look at the high school, you've got 2,250,000 for air conditioning ready. If somebody comes back in and you want to put air conditioning in, you're not gonna get that for
Another 150. I agree.
So what you're saying is.
If you're gonna do it, you gotta do it all. And these numbers are,
No, I feel.
yeah. But I mean, you're not gonna get somebody to come in and do air conditioning.
I agree. When you're in there doing the work, that's the time to get it done. And there's some, you know, there's some operational things that make it more cost effective to do it then.
In elementary, you would basically put, if you can't put it in the ceiling, you're gonna replace units, what they are, they're what they're more.
I would replace them with a modern version of what's there, or a modern, very efficient version of what's there, depending on where that's that's E, excuse me, 3 versus 4. 3 is it's basically this. Very little has changed in those units in the last 50 years. Replace them just like they are. I mean, obviously new and everything works and all of that. Or that displacement ventilation, which is much more efficient, quieter. It's a very nice unit. And if you're considering that, I can tell you, honestly, I don't know of any schools, but we could probably find out if anybody else, if any has them over here. But in the western part of the city, I can take you to 3 or 4 elementary schools where they have that system and really like it. One where it's being put in new.
So you can run air conditioning off of it?
And you can run air conditioning off.
To the rooftop, or how, where would that be stationed?
What did we figure in this case? I forget if we figured a chiller.
Because that's not a flat roof, is it?
The elementary.
Yeah.
It's all flat except for the gym.
How do you put the air, I see how you put the air conditioning in high school, but then put the air conditioning in the old.
One thing to keep in mind with the added air conditioning in the elementary school, a significant amount of square footage already has air conditioning, so it's just that interconnect point that we're talking about. So I guess thinking about it, we'd probably do some type of system that sits on the ground outside for the south side of it. And then a smaller unit on the other side.
And you're going to go significant amount of that part of the elementary that has.
Yeah, I know.
Because none of the original, none of the original.
He's referring to the A-wing, 4th and 5th grade classrooms, you know, as part of this building. Has air in it.
That's air ready, then.
Correct me if I'm wrong, looking at these 2 projects, the elementary one, I think is a lot less work. It would be reasonable to think we could get that done before next school year. The high school's another story. Is that accurate, or?
I think it is. I think if we try to do both, I think we'd fail. But I think it's possible to get the elementary done if we move quickly. And having said that, I can tell you right now that you will have people in your building doing the last hookups of those systems the day that Wes wants to fire that boiler in October. And we're going to be working right up to that last moment. But yes, I think it could be done. Stars got aligned, and you folks got to agree pretty quickly to move.
Would it cost more to get done? No, because you replace bids or, but then again, the materials could be more or less.
Right.
Is that a wash or?
I don't
Can't
know.
tell.
Yeah, I don't
can't
know.
know.
But like with a roofing project right now, if we were to go out for bids on a roofing project right now, I'd say don't do it. Because they're gonna pull in crews and they're gonna, it would be very expensive.
I think the elementary would be the same. You won't get,
We're not gonna,
I mean, if you just want, I mean, it's a good idea, but I don't think you're gonna get, it's too late.
think you're gonna get people who are hungry. Well, why are they hungry? And then you're gonna get, people who will do it and then pull in crews to do it. Good news, I think, and you've dealt with a couple of companies that I feel like I know many of you because I've watched, I think, all of your board meetings for about the last year when you've been talking about this particular issue. But you've talked about a specific company over time, good company to work with. I think if we went to them, we probably could get something that would be reasonable, because they're pretty reasonable to do. But that would be my hope.
But even to do all this at once, it's overwhelming for one company. I mean, like next summer, you do it.
Both schools.
Oh, both schools. If you do them both next summer, no.
I mean, not next summer, but I mean, even put it off a year from this stuff.
If we bid it out in January, February, to start work in June, and do both the elementary and the high school, yeah, they'll do it. You'll have lots of companies do it. And it might, honestly, we'd probably bid them separately, and you might get two different companies. You may not too, but sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that isn't a good thing. And it really depends. It really depends on who you get. But that's the beauty of us looking at those bids and reviewing them and saying, these are two very reputable companies, and they're giving you a good price. Or, this company we don't know much about, so we may not want to work with them. But
Could I just ask this for emergency stuff that has to be? Might that end up being done by one company and then company two comes in and do the rest of the elementary?
well, the stuff that I pointed out that needs to be done, if you're going to go down that road, to get it done and then put off construction, if you will, just about any company could do that. And it's not as big a deal. In fact, I think, Wes, you have bids for some of that already.
Yeah, we could take care of that stuff. It's been kind of all been hinging on what happens here.
So what is your recommendation? Obviously, it's the nice go up for us.
That would be my recommendation.
What was your recommendation?
The thing that makes me apprehensive about the elementary school that I want to make sure we don't rush is, Charlie mentioned it, we're making some recommendations about either replacing the unit that's 1-for-1 or the replacement ventilation. It really should be looked at if we do a traditional VAV system. And if we're going to try to do something this summer, I think we'd almost have to pick the bill system.
That's really enough research.
I think this summer, we need to replace the ribbon. That's better than.
Because I'm even in here, are they?
No, I know they're not in here, but I think that if you're gonna do all this, those windows have been, ever since I've been here.
Pretty to look at.
Well, great.
I taught in them many years ago.
Yeah, but I think they're about ready to fall off.
Pat, you taught in them.
Might be,
Yeah, I mean, you guys were crawling around in the buildings, is the high school worthy of spending $3.1 million in the ceilings out?
Versus the alternative of a new $22 million high school at least.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, that's a community discussion, right? But from my point of view,
Sound in the roof is
yeah,
sound, it can
yeah.
handle, that's what I'm asking.
Structurally, I didn't see any issue with it. No.
What did you think about the windows? What are they?
Honestly, we were very myopic in looking at the HVAC system. So I didn't think about the windows, to be very honest.
I mean, the windows on the north side is better.
They're not efficient, just single pane, large scale windows, pull outside, pull inside, right here.
I mean, it'd be good.
And we can certainly help with that as well. We can do whatever, however you want to do it.
I hate to put a new system in and have it all the way. I mean, it
Literally.
doesn't pay to.
Oh, there it is.
And I guess we didn't take a lot, like I said, we were very myopic in our look.
I know, I'm not
But
saying we should.
we did read EPS in our study, and they talked about windows, and they talked about water softeners and some other things as well. I don't see this as an end. I see this as a step. So whether you take the window step first or this step first, whatever. So you know, if you do this first, then you do the windows, or do the windows first, you need to keep moving through that progression. Kind of that, one of my first slides with the pyramid. You need to be fixing what's broken, and if the windows are broken, then we need to fix them and get them to be better. So like I said, I see this as a journey rather than a.
Can you think with the windows, we might be running pretty late or
Oh, no, it's just a little.
I don't know, who's the window people?
Now, yeah. So, other than the two for sure things that need to be done, if we weren't to do anything, you would say that the elementary is in more need or less need than high school right now, other than take a dollar amount out of it, size of the project.
The high school system is newer than the elementary system. Those two items that I mentioned in the elementary, one of those unit ventilators has failed. The one next door could fail tomorrow. The one next to that could fail the day after that and the day after that. So yes, I believe that the elementary is a more acute need. And you know, so and thank you for the question, because I should have mentioned that. Fixing those two things still means you're going to go, if you don't do anything this summer, fixing those two things still means you're going to go through the all winter next year. Wes is going to be crossing his fingers, but when he doesn't get a call at 3 o'clock on Saturday morning that the building is flooded and you know, coil let loose on it. That's,
Even with those two things?
because there are 12 units just like the one that failed. The other 11 could fail tomorrow, or they might not. Right? We don't know. They're what are they? 50 years old. So I'm 50 years old. I don't do things like I used to.
Charlie, if you could, I just want to make sure I'm crystal clear on the one point. You said if the board decided to do, let's say, the elementary, let's say tonight, they said, okay, we're going to do the elementary. When basically middle of October, we would still have people working in this building, making sure to make sure, in other words, it wouldn't be done by September 1st, would be like in the middle of October probably, or.
Yeah, and thank you for the clarification. I'm not saying you'd have workmen in your building all day disrupting classes,
Right.
but what I'm saying is, like, for instance, let's say we go with, let's say we're able to put in a variable air volume system. They're going to be up on the roof or wherever that system is, and tying that back to the central computer and testing that and all of those kinds of things right up to the very end. They're going to be working through that whole period. The construction will be done, right? But the buttoning it up, that last punch list we call that, I guarantee you those things will go right to the bitter end, because it just the way that they're going to be scheduled. And that's not all bad. You know, I talked to an administrator the other day that he purposely is scheduling construction in his high school during the school year. It's good for our kids to see people working. Maybe they'll figure out that's a job that they want to do. I don't agree or disagree with that, but
A follow-up is let's say if the board decided in January to put this out to bid, or December, would that scenario be same for 2016? Or would it be able to be condensed and basically construction during the 3 months we're out, and essentially less workers, I guess, in the buildings from September and October?
Yes.
Would that be the case?
yes.
All right,
Because we'd be able to say to them, you will have this project done prior to August 1st. I'd never say September 1st, because then we're working on August 31st.
Yeah, we're back before that.
So when you did this, you did make use of the other facility study?
Absolutely, we read it. Had it with us when we were here.
So by waiting a year or two, like in the high school, we talked about possibly reconfiguring some of the rooms, so that would allow us to build in some contingencies in the design of if we were to go for the whole shebang with the ductwork and everything, huh?
It would. Although the system would be malleable enough, let's say, that you should be able to do that anyway, unless you're going to do some major you know, if you're going to turn that auditorium into a wood shop, different story. But But if you're taking, you know, a science classroom and turning it into a math classroom, or splitting one in half or something like that, you should be able to accommodate those kinds of things without problem. And in fact, better in the new system.
What about putting two rooms together?
Shouldn't be an issue.
With that,
A lot to talk about.
Very
Yeah.
understandable, though. Nice job.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
so Charlie, in your opinion, what would be the next step for the board to consider now at the May committee meeting? Would be the next time this group meets, or we have a subcommittee that has been addressing it, and at one of those meetings as well. What should be our next task as a board to move this forward?
I think the first thing you need to decide is which one of these options you want to go with. And then the second thing you need to decide is how quickly. And if it's quickly, you need to decide that quickly. So that we can keep moving.
So May's not really an issue, we want to decide quickly when we discuss it. Is this, according to our regular movement, it wouldn't be decided till May
27th, 28th?
May 20th, Memorial Day. Right? We're probably not gonna make Memorial Day. If we, you know.
I think, my opinion, if you do it now, you're gonna have people working in September. I don't think you want.
I prefer not.
Except you gotta do some,
Well, some of the stuff, that's out of the way.
well, then we could leave the music, right?
Well, that stuff,
Yeah. We just go with
you
music.
got a lot of that taken care of, but later on, what?
The, smaller stuff?
Yeah.
Then you know how you're gonna get.
We're just hesitant to
Busy
spend
user.
several $1,000s and then reimburse the stuff out.
How busy are you?
We're very busy, but
So,
we'll get it.
we want to line up.
We'll be here.
Hypothetical, if we decide, whether to now or what, if it's elementary, E3 or E4 or whatever, time frame, start to finish, a month, or,
Start to finish from design to end of construction.
I guess.
Is that what you mean?
Design to bid, or?
Yeah. If we were to bid it out, to work from,
Design, bid,
Design, bid, install.
yeah.
In the elementary. Yeah, I'd want 6 weeks to 2 months to have the bid documents ready. And the reason being, I mean, if you say you want to go with E4, then we probably could do it in a month. And we don't look at making it a variable airline system. But like Nate said earlier, if we're gonna do that, that's gonna take more time because we've got to get up, we've got to look at it structurally. We've got to have multiple engineers in here to look to make sure that this building can handle that. That's going to take more time to schedule and so forth, and to design. But the system as it's laid out here, we could probably do it. But it's a big decision for you folks. It's a lot of money. I think you'd be very happy with E4 as an example, but I think I would be remiss to say to you that you should do that without at least investigating that other piece as well. So, I mean, if you gave us the go-ahead today, I think we could have bids in hand shortly after the 4th of July.
But in honesty, you know.
So there's no, I mean, to kind of play that timeline out, there's no way you even start construction until,
So once you
not
start
even think about starting it.
when
So-
you start construction, then after that, how long do you talk?
Yeah, right. And that's where I was gonna go. If you get bids in hand in the middle of July, you're not gonna start construction until the 1st of August at the very least. And that's where we're getting into Halloween, you know, and we're still working.
guys act as project managers?
Tony is one of our project managers. We have 5 project managers on staff for us. And we would manage the project. We would do it. We're owners repping it as well, if you will. So we're looking out for you. So we're not going to say we're going to accept this bid. We're going to sit down with you and here are the bids. What do you get? And that's whether it's you guys or these guys, that's up to you. But here's the bid. We like this one. This one's pretty good. Those kinds of things. But you would be involved as much as you want to make that decision.
Yeah, well, that's.
Yeah.
Where's the money?
And so I want that included in the minutes or agenda. Very good for
Let us know where you decide to go, and we will be more than happy to come back again.
Take it in and bring it back to the committee and.
along with the business manager,
We need to get that checked out in the elementary and the other options. If it's equal price and they think it's better, can the school handle it? We need to know that.
Ten, consent agenda. I make a move to approve the consent agenda. A, resignation of JV football coach, and B, hires middle school, high school science teacher, and head high school football coach. Motion and second by Dan. All in favor to approve the consent agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Good luck.
The board recognized through the consent agenda resignation of Matt Verma, the JV football coach, and the board recognized through the consent agenda the hires of 2 individuals. First is Mr. Nick Wynn as middle school, high school science teacher, and Mr. Pat B as head high school football coach. Welcome to board.
11, new business.
I make a motion to recognize the 2015 fall student youth option for fiscal year.
Motion by Sandy, second by Dan. Questions, concerns on the adopted request? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 11, 2015-16 off-state field trip requests. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I make a motion to recognize the 2015-16 out-of-state field trip requests as presented, and as listed.
You have it as listed on?
Yeah.
Motion by Debbie,
I second.
second by Tim. Questions on the out-of-state field trip requests? None, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 11C, 2015 Student Achievement Guarantee in Education, SAGE Renewal Process.
I make a motion to recognize the application process and communication to support students' achievement guarantee in education stage program in qualified schools within the district.
I'll second it.
By Sandy, second by Jim. Do you have all that, Tom? Questions on the renewal?
Ehrenberg, just process, just reminding the board that state legislation is still in place on Act 31 and 32, depending on how that rolls out through the biennium budget development, may affect our renewal, not significantly, but it just may change some of the parameters as we move forward. Mr. Nowak and our team, we will then move forward for approval to renew our app for 6 months.
You still want to renew it at this point?
Yeah, we'll go through the steps to do it, but state law may change in the process while we are renewing.
Questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 11D, 2015 summer school course offerings.
I make a motion to recognize the 2015 summer school course offerings as presented, provided enrollment numbers support staffing justification.
Second that. Second. Questions on summer school offerings?
I just wondered how they're going on enrollment.
Good, good enrollment, I think so. Although we could just do more hunter safety shit, last year we had 25 or more in this year, it's a little less than that, which is surprising, but maybe looking at that.
Board members, just another piece of the admin of the summer school enrichment play, which is included in your packet, is Cinderella, with the targeted grade, I believe it was 4 through 8. That'll take place this summer as well. That was not included in your original packet and a schedule of tentative times and dates.
I just had a question about that. I was kind of surprised that McDowell.
McDowell?
Yeah.
He is our elementary music teacher,
Okay.
Miss James McDowell, or McDowell.
Okay. Whatever. Yeah. I read it today.
All
I'm like,
three of
who
them.
is this person? Because I just assumed it would be Mrs. Rucks or, you know.
No, Jim has background in obviously the fine arts. He's a long-time choral instructor, and he has a nice avenue of resources. His wife was director of drama at Wisconsin Academy High School, so
He's directing a number of them.
he'll be very, very excited.
Yeah.
And the elementary kids and middle school kids will know who he is. So.
Yep. Great.
Other questions? Summer school. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 11E, 2015-16 Ansay and Associates Employee Benefit Health Insurance Renewal.
I made a motion to recognize the 2015-2016 employee health benefits package for the funding adjustment 10% to support program operation. All benefit partners will remain as previously established. Million recognition of services now provided by American National as our stop loss benefit. Does this mean we're decreasing the cost to employees or 5% each?
Yes.
10% for the employees?
So whole, everything was like
District.
The whole,
Yeah.
everything.
I didn't know if it
The 10% less than the state.
Got it. Is there still a
It's a
difference
win-win
for
for
those who
everyone.
take the test or not?
right, that means suffers up. Yeah, suffers study on ours. All right. Just one comment, just a reference and follow up from when Matt and Michelle were here at our business committee meeting. They did go back to the stop loss centers, as they had stated, and American National did present the most competitive bid for us to be represented by them. It's the first time that American National has represented our district, as they stated. That piece of our benefit package is really a moot point as far as our end users. It doesn't affect them whatsoever. It's just that third party insurer that takes care of our stop loss. Should we have an individual reach that threshold of 45,000 per member?
They did a very good presentation.
Could you, I mean, they had like all our other costs, but they didn't have HVAC costs. Is there some way to get that, to use them?
can continue to try.
I mean, that's, I think I asked them time before.
Yeah.
We hired them because they said we were gonna save us money, but we've never seen what they saved us versus what it cost. In all the years that we have, I don't know. I have no idea what they charge us. What it does. It's a cost in there, but nobody ever sees it.
I can share that feedback with Matt and Michelle. Let them know.
I know I should complain about that.
Yeah, that's all right. Just FYI, HBS will be on campus this Thursday, I believe, Wednesday, meeting with members of our plan if they have questions as well. So that discussion point that was carried on mid-month to follow through and will take place this week as well.
Other questions?
Potential more people coming on here?
We have our open enrollment period going on right now. And I'm anticipating there'll be a few more that come on to it.
Do a lot or?
No, that's for health insurance. No, not quite that.
I mean, it's gonna be a lot.
I don't think it'll be an overwhelming number, but there has been inquiry from individuals that haven't been eligible that are now. And I think they're doing their homework to see what is a better investment for them. We'll be able to share that when our enrollment period closes May 1, May 30th, and then we'll communicate that to the board.
Other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 11F, ATS&R, proposal for professional services. 1, develop priorities, prepare preliminary renderings, prepare cost estimates to remodel the Weyauwega Fremont High School locker room, fitness area, coaching rooms, and training area.
I make a motion to recognize the ATS&R proposal for professional services to develop priorities, prepare preliminary renderings, and prepare cost estimates to remodel the Weyauwega Fremont High School locker room, fitness area, coaching rooms, and training area.
I'll second.
Debbie, second.
From my understanding, this is $500.
Other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Dean, no? Let Dean know.
Yes, I will let Dean know, and I'll let Jim is here tonight to know it goes through the next phase of meeting to establish that meeting time for Dean to come down and meet with our identified individuals that will be part of that.
11G, bid waiver request 2015-16 Skyward Services Renewal.
I make a motion to recognize the bid waiver request to support the 2015-16 renewal of Skyward Services.
Second that. Questions on the renewal, on the bid waiver request?
I just had a question about with what's out there for competition for Skyward. Are there any new companies getting established or?
There's a couple out there. There's Power School, Skyward, are the two that I'm most familiar with. The state went through that process a couple years ago and they tried to identify their state vendor for our student management. They weren't going to go with Skyward originally, and then Skyward ended up being their choice. And quite frankly, I don't know if it's completely settled yet, within that. So Skyward, it has been our service, what we're looking at. Infinity Campus is another one as well.
I don't believe there's anything that mixes the financial side with the pupil services side like Skyward though. 'Cause I know on the financial side, Aleo or a couple of the other ones don't have the pupil part of it at
All
all.
inclusive.
Skyward's the only one that I'm aware of that has everything under one.
I have a question. This go up from last year? Is this about the same as last year, or do you?
I believe it went up a little bit. I don't know what it,
You don't
off
know what
the
they
top of
were?
my head, don't remember what it was last year.
Or just if you think of email it all, just curious.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
Other questions on the waiver? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 11H, 2015-16 Skyward Services Renewal.
I make a motion to recognize the 2015-2016 renewal of Skyward Services as presented in the amount of $33,464.
I'll second it.
Sandy, second. Questions on the services, Skyward? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 11I, Board of Education State Budget and Funding Resolution.
That's what I wonder what's going on right now.
Yeah, if the board should approve it, it'll be in the mail tomorrow, or out to representatives accordingly.
That would be, who's it open and?
Peterson, Wilson, and maybe others that touch our district in the corners and whatnot. And again, this is listed as informational and or action. This statement, or resolution affects each district differently. And the big part of the proposed budget right now is the decrease in that 150 per student. That's where other parameters of the budget proposal affect other districts in other ways. This is the most significant part of the proposal that we feel within our district. Being a district that's a negative aided tertiary district, we have different playing field as how we are funded locally. But definitely $130,000 is a significant amount of money that we could potentially would not be acceptable.
And when they cut it before, they did the teacher retirement and all that to cover, that was supposed to have the district to cover the cost of that.
Well, Act 10
Yeah,
legislation.
yeah, right.
Right.
But there is no Act 10 now.
Right.
But I meant, that's gonna cover this.
I make a motion to recognize the board resolution that describes the financial reduction of state aid to the school district of Weyauwega Fremont based on the current status of our state budget recommendations.
I'll second it.
Questions on the resolution?
I personally, I'm not sure I want to sign it, because sure, it's gonna hurt us that we don't have this money, but if they're preparing a budget, they don't have the money, it's gotta come from somewhere. And it is what it is. I mean, it's just like us trying to do something, having parents show up here, sign something, because we didn't wanna do it. There isn't the money, that's what they're trying to do, is take a state budget.
But you could,
Something's gotta come from somewhere. But, I'm just one person, though. You guys can all have it.
but do you know where that money's going? Do you know why that is?
I read all of it.
I didn't.
Just personal preference.
I talked to Kevin Peterson and both of these guys about other stuff. Luther Olson, I more than he put back in, hasn't maybe now.
I'll be up to that Thursday to meet both of them, so I'll hear my insight on the topic if we had,
Yeah, I-
board.
I don't know what this way to say it, just, I guess, you know, I don't care.
I guess I'm just cheering for somebody to live within their budget. We have to do it as our business, so that's why I'm not gonna sign it, but it's up to you guys.
Well, we gotta look where the money's going to.
Right.
I don't
So
know.
in fact, right now, the money isn't there yet.
Money's not there. And we should fix our roads, that was the latest.
They've cut that.
I know considerably. I don't mind not signing it.
I don't, it doesn't. It's not our road. And they took that, they threw it out. But we were complaining about it.
That did work, didn't it?
Well, I think they like to hear more from individuals.
Yeah.
As of late, that's the big,
Yeah,
that
talk to
comment,
them.
Yeah.
It's more individual thing, it means more when people talk to them personally. So it doesn't.
I know at daycare, you accomplish one thing, but like you say, we all have individual and it's not good stuff. And that's the thing too, we can invite our local students to one of our meetings. Huh? No, actually, we agree with it on my issue.
Okay. Whatever you want.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Yeah, I made the motion, Jim seconded. Yeah. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey,
I'll just abstain.
You abstain?
I'll just abstain. I'll write my name later.
Okay, the motion carried.
I'll do it first, right, and then I'll write mine.
5 yeas, 1 nay.
Yeah.
That's done.
Only because I do agree, I think personal, I do meeting with a person is important.
Well, calendar and future agenda, one thing on the calendar. Our regular meeting in May is supposed to be on the 25th, which is Memorial Day.
I
We
frown
want
on
to push
that
it
day.
back to the 26th or 27th. 27th meeting on Wednesday, meaning there won't be as much activities, student-wise or just throwing it out there. Committee's on the 11th.
Committee would be the last, yeah. We kept the calendar open just for this dialogue, because we knew we'd have potential date change, and whether the committee meeting or the monthly board meeting date changes. May will be a busy month. The admin team's already started to press through handbook discussions and whatnot, and our renewals and compensations that'll come forward for different groups within our district, and budget, so on and so forth. So there'll be plenty of items to present and inform the board on. So I guess what I'm saying there is a committee meeting and a board meeting is very much necessary in the month of May.
11 to 27.
how does the 27th work for all the school stuff going on?
27th is a Wednesday, there should be minimal, potentially at that time of year, if there is a rain date makeup for some events, it might go on, but it shouldn't conflict with any other minor co-curricular events going on.
26th or 27th is good for me.
Anything else for calendar and future agenda items? We have a few things to carry over.
appreciate you making the effort to come out back tonight, so thank you for being here. How's the softball team doing?
We won.
You won.
Alright, anything else for 12? 13, I move the board goes to closed session pursuant to section 19.51C Wisconsin State Statute for the following purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. A, the purpose of the closed session meeting will be to review administrative staff and director of special ed and curriculum